Hi friends, welcome back to my Cozy Crafty Cabin. So it is day 22 of my Christmas in July crafty series. We are winding down and getting close to the end. And today is going to be a tutorial on how to make these very simple and very easy Christmas notepads. So here's the supplies that I use to make these notepads. Now, I use these 5x8 junior legal pads. It's the Pen and Gear brand from Walmart. These were just for my stash. I'm assuming they still sell them though. They came in a pack of 3 whenever I purchased mine. And I'm also using some Christmas pattern 8.5x11 cardstock for the bases. Here is the beautiful paper that I'm using. It's called Here Comes Santa Claus from Echo Park. They're 4x4 cut-aparts, but of course you can use any 4x4 cut-aparts from your stash. This is just one of the sheets I wanted to use this month. Okay, so first we're going to cut down the base for our notepads. So the base measures 11 by 8 and 1/8 inches. So I'm using 8.5x11 cardstock for my base. So I'm just making one cut on the 8.5 inch side down to 8 and 1/8 inches. So I'm just left with a small scrap. But of course you can use any, like I'm using this cardstock that I had in my stash. It's Christmas themed. Of course you can use any cardstock you have in your stash, and you can always cut down some mats if you're using like some solid cardstock. But what would also work great is if you have any double-sided Christmas paper that's more heavyweight, that would be perfect, and then you would just cut it down to size. So now we're going to make 4 score lines on the 11 inch side at 2 7/8 inches, 3 1/8 inches, 8 1/4 inches, and 8.5 inches. So I'm going to be doing that here. And then we'll have like our base will be ready. So again, that's 2 7/8 inches, 3 1/8 inches, 8 1/4 inches, and 8.5 inches. So you'll have a 1/4 inch spine on the left and right side of the notepads. So now I'm just folding down on all of those score lines. But yeah, I think this would be a great project if you have any like heavier weight double-sided Christmas paper, and then you wouldn't have to cut out mats for the inside flaps. And I mean, you don't have to do it regardless, but I just thought it added a nice touch to add some pattern paper inside when you open up this notepad cover. So now I'm just rounding the corners to kind of just like help protect the paper from bending and things like that. And now our base is ready. So yep, we'll be gluing down the notepad in the middle there. So before we glue down the notepad though, we're gonna decorate that like top part of these notepads. So this was a scrap that I had, but that coordinates or matches exactly the paper I'm using. You can of course mix and match your patterns. But yeah, this was it was 2 inches wide and 5 1/16 inches long. So that's another tip too. So like these notepads on the packaging, it said that they were 5x8 inches, but whatever notepads you use, whether it's these or something else, definitely measure them first and check, because it might be slightly off what the packaging says. And then you want to, make any adjustments accordingly. So instead of like cutting down my paper to just 5x8 automatically, I had to adjust it to it's 5 1/16 by 8 inches. So yeah, after you have your adhesive or glue on that top piece and you have that glued down, I just kind of gently fold it over and press everything down. And then I'm filling in the rest of the back of the notepad with adhesive. And we're gonna then place this in the middle of our base that we made. So I'm using my scoreboard, my large scoreboard here, to help me just kind of keep the paper straight and just to help kind of guide me as I'm laying things down and trying to have everything be as lined up as possible. So yeah, once we lay down our notepads in that center piece of the base, I'm just going over it with my bone folder really good and making sure, you know, my adhesive is really glued to the paper. And then all we have left now is adding some scraps to each of the inside flaps and then also doing our cover. So I'm keeping these very simple, and I'm just going to glue a 4x4 cut apart to the front. So I just very lightly took my scoring tool and made a little mark just to help guide me for where do I want to add my adhesive, because you don't want to cover the whole 4x4 cut apart because it's only part of it's gonna get glued down, right? We're only gluing it down to the left flap, which is a little bit bigger than the right, because we want to be able to open our notepads, of course. So we're just adding glue to a little over half of the 4x4 cut apart, and then I'm using my scoreboard again here to help me just line this up nicely. Now originally my thought was I was going to add some Velcro dots to the other side, you know, of this cut apart, so on the far right side, and then, you know, have the Velcro piece on the right flap so that, you know, this, you know, would close nicely. You can also do a magnetic closure. I just don't have magnets in my stash, but I do have a bunch of Velcro dots. And then I ended up just leaving it as is. I might go back eventually and add the Velcro dots, but I actually think the paper kind of lays nicely enough without anything helping it keep it closed, if that makes sense. So now the last part is just adding some mats to the inside flap. Since I did use just single-sided cardstock, I'm adding some scraps to decorate the inside of those flaps. This is totally optional. You don't have to do this step. And that is that. So here are two of the notepads that I've made. Here's the one we just made on camera together. And guys, don't these turn out so cute? And they're so easy, right? And so simple. And I love the cut aparts from this collection. And I really like this cardstock too that I had in my stash. So yeah, here's one I made first off camera. But yeah, I really hope you guys like this idea. And thank you so much for watching. And I'll see you soon. Bye.